Hi everyone, if you check the iPhone Pro Max prices in India, it will cost roughly 1.3 lakh rupees. If you buy the same phone in the US, it will cost you roughly 81,000 rupees. In Canada, it will cost approximately 90,000 rupees. In Australia, it will cost roughly 1 lakh rupees. So why is it that iPhone prices in India are much higher than what it is in developed countries? The answer lies somewhere in taxation, and I will explain the answer in detail somewhere along the video. But on this video, we are going to understand about taxation fundamentally, and there are three specific points that we will discuss. First and foremost, why do we need taxation in the first place? Why can't government provide things for free? Second key point, that why is it that in some countries people pay a lot of direct taxes? For example, in India, we are paying excess amount of direct taxes and indirect taxes. And in some countries, for example, Monaco, Dubai, there is 0% direct income tax. Third and finally, can we move to a model in India where people are paying 0% direct income tax? So before I discuss the video, do let me know in the comment box, what do you think about this question that people in India, can we really pay 0% income tax? Is that possible? Why not? Think about it. Also, a big shout out to our sponsors for today, which is Tax Buddy. It is an excellent end-to-end service for optimizing your tax returns. You can go and speak with people from Tax Buddies in order to file reply to your notices or filing your GST returns. Now, of course, in India, taxation is high, so optimizing your taxes would make a lot of sense. So check the links in the description box. There is a special code that will give you roughly a 35% discount on Tax Buddy services. So let us get the discussion started, and first and foremost, let us understand why is it that governments need to levy taxes. The answer is very straightforward, that they need to provide a lot of services. But let us understand a little bit of historic context and philosophical context to it. It's a very interesting discussion. So there was a 16th century philosopher called as Thomas Hobbes, and he gave a concept called as the law of nature, according to which what essentially happens was that imagine a hypothetical world that governments are not there. Then people would be killing each other. They will be running with machetes or whatever weapon they can grab their hand on, and they will live in a state of lawlessness, and they will just expropriate property forcefully from each other. So the word of the day today is expropriate. Let me know, what does that mean? So essentially this will be a state of lawlessness, and no one would want to live in such a society. So what ends up happening is, or what a logical solution to this problem is, that people should get together and they should give a part of their freedom to a higher authority called as the government. Now, in order to provide basic public services like policing, maintaining of roads, bridges, and undertaking all these facilities, government will need to spend money. And how would the government raise money or get that money? By taxing people. So this is the first part of the equation as to why we need a government and why we need to pay taxes to the government. Second, if we analyze governance from a modern day lens, then what we will figure out is an economic concept called as tragedy of commons. So what is the meaning of tragedy of commons in very easy to understand language? It means that no one cares for common goods. For example, if there is a park and there is no owner of that park, then who will take care of that park? Similarly, if there is a road and no one is the owner of that road, then why would anyone take care of that road? So in an economy, there are a lot of things that are considered to be common goods, which no one takes care of, and therefore we need the government and they need to maintain it, and therefore we need to pay taxes. So now comes the natural question that, okay, great, we have to pay taxes, but are all taxes of similar types? The answer is no. There are three specific types of taxes that are levied in the economy. Very, very important for you to understand. So the three tax types are, first, direct taxes. These are income taxes that people who are working would generally pay. In India, if your income, yearly income is more than 5 lakh rupees, then you might be paying substantial amount of direct taxes. Second category is called as indirect taxes. In India, we have something called as the GST. Everyone who is purchasing a packet of biscuit or everyone who is utilizing any service in the economy is most likely to pay some sort of GST, and everyone is paying it despite them earning, not earning, etc. etc. Third category is the most misunderstood type. This is called as the invisible tax, and you are seeing this play out in 2022. Now, what is the meaning of invisible tax? It simply means that everyone is paying due to the fact that the government has taken too much debt, so they have to repay a lot of loans, so they print a lot of money. It indirectly hits you. Or there is high inflation in the economy or some macroeconomic issue, so this becomes an indirect tax for you. A classic case in point again is 2022. You are seeing the situation in the US that the inflation rate is somewhere between 8 to 12%. In India, it is around 8%, but the FD rates are roughly 6%. So how much money you are losing every year? Almost 2%. So the problem is that this becomes an indirect tax of at least 2%. 2% that we are paying. So these are three types of taxes that are usually levied, whether we are seeing it or not seeing it. We can be deeply frustrated about it, but the fact of the matter is that number one, government needs money in order to run the economy. Why? Because they have to care for the common good. If government is not caring for these goods, then the economy would not function. And for that, they need to levy taxes. And that is precisely what many governments do, but they have different models to do it. So let me explain two very interesting models here as to how governments are raising money in their economy to run their entire country. So the first model, I call it the Cayman Island model. Very interesting fact here is the population of Cayman Island. It is roughly 60,000 people. And here is the number of registered companies in Cayman Island. So for every one citizen, there are two companies that are registered in Cayman Island. Now you will say that, okay, why is this the case and why should I even bother? You should bother because people in Cayman Island pay 0% direct income taxes. And how are they able to do it? Simply because of the fact that every company that gets registered in Cayman Island, it has to pay a service fee. It has to pay an installation fee, so to say, in order to register the company, and a maintenance fee. So the government there ends up making crazy amount of money. So one could argue that Cayman Island is a tax haven. Normal citizens do not pay direct income taxes. Their government still makes crazy amount of money. So again, just to give you some context, in order to register certain type of companies in Cayman Island, you might have to spend up to $50,000. On top of that, annual maintenance fee is roughly $800. So to cut the long story short, the government is making crazy amount of money, not by taxing citizens directly, but by exploring other means of generating revenues. So as a result, they are able to run their economy very smoothly. Now comes the second model, which is called as natural resources model. UAE or Middle Eastern countries are a classic case. You might have heard from your relatives, from your friends who are working in Dubai that they pay 0% income tax. A side note here, when I was studying at INSEAD, there was a lot of demand to work in Dubai. What was the primary reason? That if you go work with McKinsey in Dubai, you as an expatriate also would have to pay 0% income tax, which is huge cost saving. Because think about it this way, that if you are working at McKinsey in India, you might have to pay 30% direct income tax. But if you're doing the same job in Dubai, you have to pay 0% tax. So why would you not want to work in Dubai or other Middle Eastern locations? So now comes the natural question that why is it that in the Middle East, the taxes are zero in several countries? The reason here is that these countries control a massive natural resource, which is oil. They sell this oil to get money. Now they are able to service the economy by selling public goods. Why public goods? Because when a country sells natural resources, who do these natural resources belong to? Unless you are running some government in Uttar Pradesh or Bihar, public good belongs to the public. This is just a joke. Please take it as a joke. Don't make it a serious debate. Okay, moving on. So to cut the long story short, many countries in Cayman Island, Monaco, UAE, all these countries impose 0% direct tax on its citizens. Why? Because they are able to get revenues or earn revenues through other sources. So this brings us to a natural question that, hey, what about situation in India? Can we ever become like a tax haven, or can we actually become a country that has a lot of natural resources and I as a citizen will enjoy my life paying 0% tax? Unfortunately, the answer is no. First and foremost, we are a net importer of things, not a net exporter of things. So there is a huge trade deficit that we run in terms of importing things, especially oil. So we are not a natural resource rich country. Yes, there are some commodities where we are net exporters, but when it comes to net commodity imports minus exports, we are a net importer. So we are not a naturally commodity rich country. So this is problem one. Problem number two, can we turn India into a tax haven? That's a very interesting argument. Probably I'll make a separate video on that topic. But to cut the long story short, making a country tax haven is a highly dangerous game. And a country should only play that game when its internal entrepreneurial ecosystem is not that strong. For example, when it comes to Cayman Island based location, if you are an entrepreneur in Cayman Island and you are trying to export your stuff in the US, and there is some panga going on between like US and Cayman Island, then what will happen? Then the US is going to impose some sanctions on Cayman Island based entrepreneurs, and that will crush their economy in an instant. But since Cayman Island itself does not have a very strong internal entrepreneurial ecosystem, they don't care. They just simply say that, you know what, come open your companies here on our island, we will take care of everything. What is US going to do? US can't stop the flow of entrepreneurs who want to register their companies in Cayman Island. They can't stop it. So yeah, that is how their economy function. But in India, India is a much more complex economy. We have a very large population. So it becomes a huge challenge for us to execute such things. Third and finally, given India's large population, our government has to run fiscal deficit. What it simply means is that our government needs to borrow a lot of money in order to serve the people in the economy. And as a result, we keep on taking more and more debt with every passing year. So this brings us to a very simple discussion that are taxes ever going to go to zero in India? The answer most likely is a no, at least for a substantial future. At least in our generation, it doesn't seem that way. Why is that? Because right now, our government is heavily reliant on taxation-based income as its revenue stream. So here is how government earns 1 rupee, and you can categorically see. Just take a look at non-tax revenue. It makes up only 9% of the entire income of the government. So rest of the majority of the money depends on what? It unfortunately depends on taxation. So now comes the natural question that, okay, fine, we have to pay taxes if we are living in India, but who should be paying that taxes? Can you analyze different countries and talk a little bit about that? I'm tired of paying taxes. So is there some remedy for me? So okay, so let us quickly understand this issue as well. So in very simple terms, there are 3 categories of people who can pay tax in an economy. First would be considered as the rich class people. For example, if you go to Scandinavian countries, it is the rich working class that ends up paying taxes. If you look at this rich category, there would be 2 subcategories here. One would be people who run businesses and provide a lot of employment opportunities. And second would be high-end paying job people. Now in Scandinavia, there is a reason why there is so much of direct taxation. In some of the countries, it is up to even 55%. Why is that? Because a lot of people have high-end paying jobs. So they are capable of paying very, very high taxes. In Scandinavian countries, people not only become rich by doing businesses, they also become rich by pursuing these high-end employment opportunities, by working with multinational firms, by getting into those 0.5% highest paying jobs. So as a result, they are able to tax a higher tax base and provide better return on taxes. Now, what is meant by return on taxes? For example, you might have heard from your friends, or if you would have lived or visited Scandinavian countries, you would have seen excellent social security, excellent healthcare, clean roads, whatnot, free education. So that in simple terms is called as return on taxes. Government charges a lot of taxes, provides a lot of services. Why are they able to do it? Because a lot of people have created wealth. They are able to pay taxes. Their tax base is very, very wide. And that model of taxing the rich works wonderfully well for Scandinavian countries. Now comes the second category of people who pay taxes. And here I will talk about 2 countries, India and China. So in India and China, it is unfortunately the middle class and the poor class that pays a lot of tax. Why is that the case? I had made a separate video. You can go and check it out. It was about why the middle class pays so much tax in India, but I will still present a brief summary here. One of the key reasons why the middle class in India gets crushed is very simple, because we don't have high-end paying jobs in India. There are very, very few high-end paying jobs in India. Approximately 60% of our population is involved in agriculture, and the income that they generate is very, very less. They only contribute 15% to our entire GDP. As a result, the situation in India is such that only 1% people are practically paying direct income taxes. Same is the situation in China, and you can take a look at this particular snippet here that in China also, they tax a lot on their middle class and lower middle class. Why is that the case? Because you might naturally ask me that, hey, why can't they impose a lot of taxes on these business people? The reason is that they always have Cayman Island to run to. If a country like India or China impose crazy amount of taxation on rich businessmen, they will run to Cayman Island, right? And explore some tax haven. They have 100 loopholes that they can find. So as a result, the middle class in China and India gets crushed. Now you might say that, okay, there is another category of people, which is poor people. Why can't they pay taxes? Simply because of the fact that they have no money to pay taxes. Now here is a very quick 20-year study that was done, and you can take a look at wealth inequality in India over the last 2 decades. So I am not talking about current government. Okay, I'll not give disclaimer. You understand what I'm trying to say. So kindly do not go ballistic on the comment section. This is not a criticism against any specific government. So take a look at wealth inequality in India, and you will clearly see that this represents the wealth owned by the bottom 50%. It has barely moved in the last several years. In fact, it has only come down. The wealth inequality has only increased with time. So this brings us to the final section, that is there a solution? So there are 4 specific points that I'm going to speak about. First and foremost, we should widen the tax base. For example, a lot of farmers in India who are rich, they do not pay taxes. They should be brought under the tax paying ambit. Additionally, there are a lot of hawkers in India who are making crazy amount of money, but again, they do not pay any taxes. Singaporean government has done a wonderful thing, that they have literally organized the unorganized sector, which is the hawker, in the form of hawker centers. So this is what a hawker center in Singapore looks like. It is completely regulated by the government, and every hawker actually ends up paying taxes. So this is a simple solution that can be executed. Point number 2 is to get more people into the workforce. The workforce participation of females in India is very, very low. In fact, it is so dismal that we fall below Bangladesh when it comes to female workforce participation. I will probably make a separate video on this topic if there is enough interest. But yes, bringing more people into the workforce will widen our tax base and will alleviate the tax burden on common citizens. Third point is called as the iPhone tax or directional tax. This brings me to the question that I had asked in the beginning, which was around iPhones. Why are iPhones more expensive in India? The reason is that this is a kind of a directional tax. Directional tax simply means that people who are buying iPhones in India, these people can afford a lot of things. So they are elite class, so to say. So probably they should be paying more money in order to avail these facilities in India. Am I happy about it? The answer is no. I myself am shooting this video from iPhone that I have purchased in India. So I myself have paid premium prices on this iPhone. A lot of counter arguments are given that, you know what, iPhones are imported from China, this, that. Okay, so it is manufactured in China. It also gets imported in US, Canada, all those places. But why is it that taxes are higher? Because it's a segmental or directional tax. These type of taxes are levied by a lot of governments. For example, if you consider Singapore, in Singapore, the cost of owning a car, the same car that you will buy in the US, it will cost 5x to own in Singapore. Why? Because the Singapore government is using a directional tax to penalize people who are owning a car. Similarly, the Indian government want to penalize people who are owning an iPhone or luxury phones. Fourth and final point, which is a capitalist point, is that honestly, taxation problem in India is not a tax problem. It's a wealth creation problem. If enough people in India are rich and if they are wealthy, then we too can generate very high impact on our taxes, very similar to how Scandinavian countries are doing. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please press the like button and do check the links in the description box. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon.